This is Leanne Goebel reporting for AdobeAirstream.com. On a recent campaign stop in Pagosa Springs, Colorado, Denver Mayor John Hickenlooper, who is running for governor of Colorado, talked about economic development, including the creative sector.
You just have to drive through Colorado and you see we have landscapes that beg for artists. And, I just came out of today, we were in Alamosa, now we're in Pagosa, tonight we'll be in Durango. Each one of these communities has their own different personality, but each one is a beacon for artists, right? And maybe they're not actually living here, but they're somewhere in the community. Part of it is how do we create more markets for the art that they create? I was at a large technology company in Boulder 3 weeks ago, and they're on 18 acres. They've got 2,500 employees. It's a huge place, and wall after wall in their place of sterile, no art, nothing. And I sat there. I said, "Do you realize that for not very much money, you could be supporting a whole, range of artists, abstract and representational, and large format and small format. And your people would do a better job, right? They'd come to work, they'd be more excited. There's a wonderful study of sort of technology that shows how much more productive. I used to chair the Colorado Business Committee for the Arts, and you can't argue. If you've got art on the walls, your employees are less likely to be recruited away. They feel they solve problems more effectively. Art helps people be better than what they normally are."
The mayor and gubernatorial candidate then suggested a new kind of percent for the art program as a possible economic stimulus.
We've talked a lot in Denver about having 1/10 of 1% for art.
Right.
So that every business spends 1/10 of 1% of their payroll for art. And it's a small amount, but yet for most of these large businesses, it's a significant amount. It means for, if an employee is making, 1%, if you're making $100,000, it would be $1,000. So 1/10 would be $100. But so if you're making 50,000, you'd be making $50. Doesn't sound like a lot, but these companies that have 10 and 13,000 employees, all of a sudden they're spending thousands of dollars, 10, 15, $20,000 a year buying art from local artists.
Right.
Then all of a sudden you become a place where, young creative people want to be in Colorado anyway. If suddenly we had a stronger demand and a good art market for them, wouldn't that make a difference?
I then asked him about the upcoming Denver Biennial of the Americas and what he would say to those who contend it's a flawed concept, hard to justify, and doomed to fail.
It's already a success, right?
Right.
We brought the community together in new and fresh ways. We've got 14 former heads of state from Latin America and Canada coming to congregate in Denver. What we're really doing is trying to draw attention to the fact that we have these incredible opportunities in our own hemisphere, right? Brazil is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. In a few years, they're going to be the 5th largest economy in the world. Mexico, Canada. We import more oil from our hemisphere than we do from the Middle East.
Right.
We have more trade with our hemisphere than we do with China, and it's growing at a faster rate, and yet we take it for granted.
Right.
So what better way than through culture and ideas and innovation? It's not just culture, it is innovation. It is about ideas. It's not just in the United States, it's happening in Peru, it's happening in Nicaragua or Toronto, Canada. New ideas are happening all over the place. How do we begin to kind of celebrate the uniqueness of our hemisphere?
Right. But what will the biennial do for Denver? Is it about sustainability, transportation, or how to build a new, stronger green economy?
It's more, it conforms to people's modern expectations. How do we create transportation, right? Is it really light rail, or should maybe we need some different form of bus transportation? What's the future of cities? What are they going to look like? And I think our hemisphere is going to have a bunch of ideas that are, we've looked for so long to Europe for our cultural touch points. Right now for the economy, we look to India and China, and yet we have these robust economies right in our own hemisphere where, much more in common, much less that divides us. Let's start seeing if we can build relationships and start with culture, start with ideas. Soon you're buying and selling and creating commerce.
And what does sustainability mean to you?
Well, with sustainability, I did one of my State of the City speeches where we covered every aspect of the word sustainable. And the notion of sustainability is how can we take the activities and the things we create and make sure that they are, taking us to a better life and creating real progress rather than pulling us back. And sometimes you think you're doing the right thing, but when it's not sustainable and when it can't really take care of itself and grow into something better, then in the end, nothing stays the same. If it's not sustainable, it becomes a drag.
Right. And what are you most proud of accomplishing as mayor of Denver?
A lot of the things that pay for themselves, such as we converted all of our traffic signals to LEDs, 80% less energy, they last 10 times as long. They cost more, but they pay back the investment in 2 or 3 years. Make more energy efficient buildings. How can we begin looking at sustainable vehicles? All these different aspects of a sustainable economy, more solar, more wind energy. How do we make sure that we changed our planning process, what we call livable cities, but we did a transportation planning process where instead of just looking at cars and automobiles, we looked at passenger trips, and we treated it like watersheds. Each road, each artery was like you think of it as tributaries. And how do we begin thinking about people moving on bicycles and walking and taking light rail or buses and having we have the largest bike sharing program in the United States, right? Almost 500 bicycles, 45 stations. And the whole notion is that people can get off light rail, they can get onto a bike, they can do the last 100 yards. It doesn't cost them anything. This is, how do we wean ourselves off automobiles?